The year is 1984. The Soviet Union has just told the Mil Design Bureau that their helicopter is obsolete before it ever entered service. A rival design, faster, more radical, built by a competing bureau, had won the government contract. The Mi-28 program was defunded, deprioritized, and quietly set aside. The engineers who had spent 4 years building it were told in effect that their work was finished. They kept building it anyway. That decision to continue developing a helicopter nobody had officially ordered is the reason the Mi-28 exists today, and the reason Russia's most advanced attack helicopter variant is currently flying combat missions with sensors and weapons that rival anything the West has deployed. This is the full story of the Mi-28 Havoc, a machine that survived a Cold War rivalry, the collapse of its own government, 2 decades of budget chaos, and a combat debut that exposed its vulnerabilities as brutally as it demonstrated its strengths. It was designed to kill tanks. It nearly died in a bureaucratic war first. To understand the Mi-28, you have to understand what was wrong with the helicopter it was meant to replace. The Mi-24 Hind is one of the most recognizable military aircraft ever built. Fast, heavily armed, and intimidating in appearance, it became an icon of Soviet military power through the 1970s. But the Hind was designed around a compromise that made military sense in the 1960s and increasingly less sense as the 1970s progressed. The Mi-24 was built to carry both weapons and troops. It could insert an 8-man assault team while simultaneously providing its own fire support. In theory, this dual capability made it extraordinarily versatile. In practice, it made it heavy, less maneuverable than a dedicated gunship, and structurally committed to a fuselage volume that a pure attack platform did not need. American engineers were moving in the opposite direction. The AH-64 Apache program, which began formal development in 1972 and would produce a prototype by 1975, was built around a single principle: a dedicated attack helicopter carries weapons and nothing else. No troop compartment, no compromise. Every kilogram of the airframe optimized for survivability, firepower, and the ability to find and destroy armor at night. Soviet planners watching the Apache program understood the implication. If the next war in Central Europe involved massed tank formations advancing under cover of darkness, which Soviet doctrine assumed it would, then the Mi-24's limitations became critical vulnerabilities. A gunship that was also a transport was slower, less agile, and structurally heavier than a gunship that was only a gunship. The formal requirement that reached the Mil Design Bureau in 1980 was specific. Build a 2-seat tandem cockpit attack helicopter with exceptional survivability, superior agility to the Mi-24, and a weapons system optimized entirely for anti-armor operations at night and in all weather. No troop compartment, no secondary transport role, a pure predator. The first prototype flew on November 10, 1982. On paper, the program was on track. What the engineers did not know was that a competitor was already preparing to take everything away from them. Soviet military aviation in the early 1980s was not a unified procurement system. It was a competition between design bureaus, Mil, Kamov, Sukhoi, Yakovlev, each with their own engineering philosophies, political connections, and institutional interests. When a major contract was at stake, the competition between bureaus could be as intense as any external rivalry. The Kamov Bureau's entry into the attack helicopter competition was the Ka-50 Black Shark, and it was genuinely radical. Where the Mi-28 followed conventional helicopter architecture, single main rotor, tail rotor, tandem 2-seat cockpit, the Ka-50 used Kamov's signature coaxial contra-rotating rotor system. 2 rotors mounted on the same mast, spinning in opposite directions, eliminating the need for a tail rotor entirely. The result was a more compact aircraft with exceptional vertical performance and agility in confined airspace. The Ka-50 was also single-seat. Kamov's engineers argued that advances in automated systems had made a dedicated weapons operator unnecessary, that a sufficiently sophisticated cockpit could allow one pilot to manage both flight and weapons employment simultaneously. This was a genuinely controversial claim, and it would become the central argument of the selection competition. In 1984, the Soviet military evaluated both aircraft in a formal fly-off and selected the Ka-50. The decision was framed as a victory for innovation over convention. The Ka-50's agility was assessed as superior, and the automation argument was accepted, at least provisionally. The Mi-28 program was not cancelled outright. It was deprioritized. Funding was reduced. Development continued at a fraction of its previous pace. For most programs, this is the slow death before the formal termination announcement. Mil's engineers made a different calculation. They believed the single pilot concept would fail under actual combat conditions, that the cognitive load of simultaneously flying a helicopter and managing targeting, weapon selection, and battlefield awareness would overwhelm any single crew member in a real engagement. They continued refining the Mi-28A, flew it at the Paris Air Show in 1989, and waited for events to prove their argument. Events obliged. The First Chechen War exposed the Ka-50's single-pilot limitation with brutal clarity. In complex, fast-moving urban combat, Ka-50 pilots were reported to be operating at the edge of their cognitive capacity. The workload that Kamov's automated systems were supposed to absorb had not, in practice, been absorbed. The argument for a dedicated weapons operator, someone whose entire focus during an engagement is finding, identifying, and destroying targets while the pilot manages the aircraft, was validated not by engineering analysis, but by combat experience. By the mid-1990s, the balance had shifted. The Mi-28 program was restored to priority status. The helicopter that had been told it was obsolete had survived long enough to watch its replacement develop the exact limitations its designers had predicted. The variant that entered Russian service as the primary production model was the Mi-28N, the N designating Nokhnoi, Russian for nocturnal. The name was not branding. It reflected a genuine and specific design objective: the ability to operate with full combat effectiveness in complete darkness, in adverse weather, against targets that had no idea the aircraft was approaching. The airframe philosophy behind the Mi-28N is best understood as a flying tank that has been taught to move quickly. Crew protection is built into every structural decision. The cockpit's pilot in the rear, elevated position, weapons operator in the forward, lower seat, are armored with titanium and reinforced glass capable of defeating 12.7mm rounds and fragmenting 20mm projectiles. The seats and landing gear are both energy-absorbing systems designed to keep the crew alive in a vertical impact at up to 12 meters per second. The two Klimov TV3 117V MA turboshaft engines, each producing over 2,200 horsepower, are mounted in separate armored compartments on opposite sides of the fuselage, ensuring that a single engine hit does not cause immediate loss of the aircraft. The 5-blade main rotor is constructed from composite materials tested to withstand direct hits from 20 to 30mm projectiles, not to survive them undamaged, but to retain enough structural integrity to allow the aircraft to disengage rather than fall immediately. The distinctive X-shaped tail rotor reduces acoustic signature, a small but operationally meaningful advantage when operating at low altitude against an enemy with ears. The performance figures reflect the weight of all this protection. Maximum speed approaches 300 to 303 km per hour. The Mi-28N is substantially heavier than the AH-64 Apache, a fact that reflects a deliberate philosophical choice. The Russian design accepts a weight penalty in exchange for protection levels that the American design does not match. Whether that trade-off is correct depends entirely on the threat environment the helicopter is expected to operate in. The airframe is 17 meters in length. Maximum takeoff weight reaches 11,500 kilograms. It is not a subtle machine. An attack helicopter is ultimately defined by its ability to destroy things, and the Mi-28's weapons architecture reflects the same philosophy as its structure: maximize lethality against the widest possible range of targets. The primary fixed weapon is the Shipunov 2A42 30mm autocannon, mounted in an articulated chin turret with a traverse range that allows it to engage targets across a wide arc without requiring the aircraft to reorient. The 2A42 is a combat-proven weapon. The same cannon is mounted on the BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicle and the Ka-52. Its selectable rate of fire reaches 900 rounds per minute, and the Mi-28 carries approximately 250 rounds. Against infantry, light vehicles, and thin-skinned armor, it is devastating. Against main battle tanks, it is a suppression tool rather than a killing weapon. For armor destruction, the Mi-28 carries its primary anti-tank missiles on 4 external hardpoints. The standard loadout includes up to 16 9M120 Ataka missiles, radio-commanded weapons capable of defeating the frontal armor of modern main battle tanks through a shaped charge warhead. The Ataka's radio guidance requires the operator to maintain line of sight to the target during the missile's flight, which imposes constraints on engagement geometry that more advanced fire and forget systems do not share. The hardpoints can also carry 80mm S8 or 122mm S13 unguided rocket pods for area suppression, additional cannon pods, and short-range air-to-air missiles for self-defense against other helicopters and low-flying aircraft. This flexibility allows the loadout to be configured for specific mission types rather than carrying a fixed weapons package regardless of the target environment. The Mi-28N's most distinctive external feature is the sphere mounted above the main rotor mast. This is the N025mm wave fire control radar, and its position is operationally significant in a way that is not immediately obvious. By mounting the radar above the rotor disc rather than on the nose or fuselage, the Mi-28N can position itself behind terrain, a ridgeline, a tree line, a building, with only the radar sphere exposed above the obstacle. The aircraft's fuselage remains concealed. The radar continues scanning. Targets at ranges up to 10 kilometers can be detected and tracked without the helicopter becoming visible to ground-based air defense systems or the targets themselves. The aircraft fires from concealment, then relocates before the enemy can determine its position. The nose-mounted electro-optical turret provides the weapons operator with a daytime camera, a forward-looking infrared thermal imaging system, and a laser rangefinder. In darkness or poor visibility, the thermal imager detects heat signatures, vehicle engines, human bodies that are invisible to the naked eye. The laser rangefinder feeds precise distance data into the fire control computer, improving weapons accuracy. Both crew members have access to full-color multifunction displays, presenting sensor data, weapons status, and navigation information simultaneously. The helmet-mounted targeting system allows the weapons operator to designate targets by looking at them. The fire control computer tracks the operator's line of sight and slews the weapon's turret to match it. The time between target acquisition and weapons release is measured in fractions of a second. These systems are what transformed the Mi-28 from a heavily armored gunship into a precision night hunter. The armor keeps the crew alive if the enemy finds them. The sensors are designed to ensure the enemy does not find them first. The Mi-28's development history did not end when it entered service. It accelerated. Initial deliveries of the Mi-28N to Russian aviation units began around 2006, with formal acceptance into service in October 2009. The first significant combat deployment came in Syria, where the aircraft operated against ground targets in conditions that provided real operational data unavailable from any training environment. The Mi-28UB, a dual-control training variant with full combat capability, flew for the first time in 2013. The existence of a combat-capable training aircraft reflects a doctrine that many air forces share. The aircraft used for training should be the aircraft used for fighting, so that crew skills transfer directly without adjustment. The most significant development is the Mi-28NM, internally designated the Super Night Hunter, which flew its first prototype in 2016 and represents a generational upgrade over the original N variant. The VK2500P engines provide increased power output and improved high-altitude performance. New rotor blades increase maximum speed. The N025E radar is upgraded with improved resolution and expanded detection range. The avionics architecture is rebuilt around digital systems that enable data link communication with unmanned aerial vehicles. The Mi-28NM can receive targeting data from drones operating ahead of it, engaging targets it has never directly observed. The weapons integration extends to the Izdaliye 305, a laser-guided missile with a reported range of 25 kilometers that gives the Mi-28NM the ability to engage targets from distances that place it entirely outside the engagement envelope of most ground-based air defense systems. This is a fundamentally different operational concept from the Ataka missiles. It carries alongside it, not suppression at close range, but precision elimination from standoff distance. The conflict in Ukraine has provided the most extensive and costly combat data in the Mi-28's operational history. The aircraft has demonstrated the survivability its designers claimed under real ground fire conditions. It has also demonstrated the vulnerability of any attack helicopter operating in airspace contested by modern man-portable air defense systems and radar-guided anti-aircraft guns. Losses have occurred. The data from those losses is being incorporated into ongoing development. Recent photographic evidence from late 2025 and early 2026 suggests initial Mi-28 deliveries to Iran, though neither government has confirmed this officially. The Mi-28 exists in a competitive landscape that includes both its domestic rival and the Western design that originally justified its creation. Mi-28N versus Kar-52. Alligator. The internal competition that nearly killed the Mi-28 did not end when the Mi-28 won the procurement argument. Both aircraft entered Russian service, and both are currently deployed in combat operations. The Russian military's decision to operate both reflects a genuine assessment that they serve different functions rather than being direct substitutes. The Ka-52's coaxial rotor system gives it agility and vertical performance advantages in confined terrain. It is widely used in a reconnaissance and target designation role. acquiring targets and feeding that information to other platforms. The Mi-28's heavier armor and larger weapons payload make it the preferred platform for sustained direct attack. In practice, the two aircraft are frequently operated together, the Ka-52 finding targets, the Mi-28 destroying them. Mi-28NM versus AH-64 Apache Guardian. This is the comparison that defined the Mi-28's reason for existing, and it has become genuinely competitive in ways it was not for most of the Mi-28's history. The AH-64 maintains advantages in network integration and the maturity of its longbow millimeter wave radar system, which has been continuously refined through decades of operational experience. Its combat record across multiple conflicts is more extensive. Its logistics and maintenance infrastructure is global in ways that Russian systems are not. The Mi-28NM's advantages are speed and protection. It is faster than the Apache in level flight. Its armor specification exceeds the Apache's. The Izdeliye 305 missile's 25-kilometer range gives it a standoff capability that Apache-carried Hellfire missiles do not match. The avionics gap that defined the comparison for the first 2 decades of the Mi-28's existence has largely closed with the NM variant. Digital systems, drone integration, and updated sensor packages have brought Russian capability within genuine competitive range. The choice between the two platforms now depends on doctrine, logistics, and operational context rather than a clear technology differential in either direction. The Mi-28's history is a study in institutional persistence. It was built to answer a specific question that the AH-64 Apache had asked: what does a dedicated two-crew, all-weather attack helicopter look like when the designer is not asked to compromise? The answer the Mil Bureau produced was technically sound. It was nearly destroyed by a procurement process that chose a different answer. The Ka-50 was the right choice in 1984 for reasons that made sense in 1984. Combat experience invalidated those reasons by 1995. The Mi-28 program, kept alive by engineers who believed in it when the institution did not, was ready to fill the gap when the gap became undeniable. The Mi-28NM that exists today is not the aircraft those engineers designed in the early 1980s. It carries different sensors, different weapons, and different capabilities. What it retained from that original design is the fundamental philosophy: maximum protection for the crew, maximum firepower at the target, and the willingness to absorb punishment that would destroy a lighter aircraft and keep fighting. That philosophy was not fashionable in 1984. It proved durable across 4 decades of development and combat. The Havoc refused to be cancelled. It refused to become obsolete. Whether it will outlast the threats it currently faces is a question being answered right now, in real time, over contested airspace. Subscribe. Every machine has an origin story. The best ones were almost never built.